Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'd like to introduce today Raul Burrell from Oregon State University. He is the streaming media coordinator. Raul?
Hi, everyone. Wow, nice turnout. Thank you all for coming. My presentation today is on lecture capture in higher education. And we're going to see how far into my presentation I can go before I go totally off the reservation and start talking about something else. Let's see. Just some contact information if anybody wants to reach me. That's my email and my phone number. I've got some cards up here as well if you want to pick up a card. Please feel free to contact me at any time for any reason. I'm happy to talk to you all about really anything at all. A lot of people have already discovered this. I welcome your phone calls and your emails, and I'm always happy to impart knowledge. I might not always be right, but I like to talk anyway. Let's do just a quick definition of what lecture capture is. As I see it, lecture capture, of course, has existed for years in higher education. Lecture capture is defined as the process of recording a lecture or presentation for the purpose of redistributing it later in an organized academic format. Just recording it alone does not constitute lecture capture as far as I'm concerned. It has to be the distribution of that content after the fact that really makes it lecture capture. Otherwise, it's just a recording. For it to be relevant to academia, it's got to be organized. There's got to be some kind of metrics or analytics involved for the distribution of that video, and that's what makes it lecture capture. Lecture capture does come in three general overviews, three tiers, if you will. Studio classrooms, these are the large scale ones. In this picture, you'll see microphones hanging from the ceiling. So we're recording students as they speak. This is not one of my classrooms. This is just a collection of photographs I've amassed over a while. In this one, you'll see the camera pointing down near the front of the classroom with some projection screens and a whole lot of lights. Looks very much like a studio. You'll see cameras like these oftentimes. We have a little Panasonic back there as well. All kinds of cameras. Sony makes them as well. But, you'll see these a lot in a lecture capture classroom, and they're oftentimes operated by an engineer in a room such as this. We have a couple of rooms such as these. For some reason, my engineers have their backs turned to the room, I guess so they can concentrate on the content rather than what's happening through the window. But most campuses will have one or two rooms such as this. This is very high-end, high-concept, high-price. We don't see many of these, and this is oftentimes for just very specific content scenarios. In a similar vein, for studios, this is now the Khan Academy and the Coursera realm. We're seeing a lot more of this, an instructor but no class. In this case, actually, the layout is actually pretty poor because you can see the instructor is actually looking to the side as she's talking about her slides. When she should be looking forward into the camera, but the concept is there. This is more common, but again, it's a camera, a computer, and a screen so you can see yourself as you're doing your presentation, but this can still constitute a studio. On the second tier, a lower tier, is what I would call modular. Modular is taking the components that you would see in a studio and how would you say it? Turning them into, separating them into separate components, cameras and capture systems. And here you see a variety of them. Both the Crestron and the Extron box are displayed here. The Katura box, the Winoff box, the MediaSite box. These are all standalone boxes that can act as just a recording mechanism without any other kind of intelligence behind them. They all operate at a basic start-stop level and can be oftentimes integrated into a basic teaching podium in a classroom where an instructor can operate the whole thing himself. He can start his recording, he can stop his recording. What happens to that recording after the fact is intelligence that goes beyond what these mechanisms themselves do. And then at the lowest tier is the do-it-yourself solution. Adobe has both Presenter and Captivate. Presenter is a lot more of an academic product. Captivate is a lot more of a commercial product, but they both will record desktop content. TechSmith, most of you will know it as Camtasia. It's the same company, they've changed names. Kaltura has a product now. iSpring is a competitor in the software capture solutions realm as well. So this is the lowest tier, and this is the easiest tier for entry for anyone. You could roll this out to just about every academic instructor on your campus without any kind of additional technology. If they've got a computer, they can do computer capture. And most of these will also do webcam capture from the webcam on a laptop, for instance, but not going to be a high quality product. It's not going to give you the kind of content you want to put in, say, iTunes U or in a Coursera course that you want to make available through an open university or through the MOOCs that everyone was talking about 2 years ago. Now no one wants to talk about anymore. So Frost & Sullivan put out a report in 2013 where they said the LCS or lecture capture solutions market is fragmented with the top 3 vendors, Sonic Foundry, Echo 360, and Panopto, Sonic Foundry being MediaSite, accounting for approximately 1/3 of the total market revenues and several others close behind. Truth is, if you actually went back to 2010 or 2005, those 3 would probably have encompassed much larger, I would venture to say up to about 90% of the market. So 1/3 sounds big, but in fact it's shrinking. Other things they said, new vendors are emerging, although they are currently small, globally located, well placed to capitalize on first mover advantage and growth in individual regional markets. Near-term barriers to growth, which are unique to education, such as funding and infrastructure. Anyone who's had to deal with Echo 360 or MediaSite knows something about the funding and infrastructure hurdles that come with those. Training, pedagogical issues. Instructors don't know what to do with their videos. They think it's great that, yay, I can record my lecture. Now what am I going to do with it? Especially true in K through 12, but not particularly relevant to us right now. Factors driving the market are new pedagogies. These are the hotshot new instructors coming out with new ideas, and they're really driving new technologies. Reinvention of the classroom experience, the flipped classroom, which I'm actually seeing a lot of the flipped classroom content coming through our lecture capture solutions. And online and distance learning, there are a lot more people wanting to learn in higher education than we have capacity to accommodate on campuses. So a lot of people are starting to learn online, and growing demand for continuing education. We have, in fact, an entirely new continuing education body at our institution whose job it is simply for, is to accommodate continuing education learners. The report is from 2013, and I mention that because I think in 2 years we've probably seen a sea change in the market. First, let's go back to, actually this slide comes out of the report and I liked it a lot. Lecture capture is up there at the top right of the slide, but this is basically a media workflow. I liked this slide because I drew this for a presentation last year, and it's pretty much the same thing. This is an institution's media ecosystem. And as convoluted as this may seem, if yours is as simple as this, then you're lucky, because yours probably has a lot more lines than this does. But it is very similar to the one that came out of the Frost & Sullivan report, and we'll actually go back to that one in a second. I'll let you guys take a picture. The slides will be available online as well. So again, this is Frost & Sullivan report, and shows where lecture capture sits in a media workflow. So companies like Panopto, Sonic Foundry, and Echo 360 probably existed at the top right where it says lecture capture, where it's circled, as recently as 3 years ago. But if you look at these 3 companies now, and you look at where they are right now, MediaSite has trended towards being more of a modular hardware vendor now. They're moving away from the holistic online or server-based delivery solution, while Echo 360 has moved entirely in the opposite direction. They're a lot more of a cloud-based video delivery platform, very much on par with Kaltura, in fact. And I've seen a lot of screenshots from Echo 360's new online, what do they call it? Their advanced learning system or something like that. Yeah, and the screenshots look very similar to the Kaltura platform. And Echo 360 is moving away from the hardware side. So while one's moving more towards modular hardware, the other one's moving towards online cloud-based delivery. Panopto, on the other hand, is like slow and steady, down the middle, still doing the same old thing. And in fact, they seem to still be doing very well with that market. While on the other hand, seeing 800-pound gorillas like Echo 360 suddenly playing catch-up because they realize that the whole, no, we're going to handle all your video and you're going to have to record it through our machines solution no longer works. And so seeing them play catch-up is a little bit amusing. But on the other hand, seeing some competition in the online and cloud-based video platform market is refreshing. It's good to see some competition out there. Lecture capture, regardless of what tier you're looking at, can be parsed into either smart or dumb captures. Dumb capture is basically can be boiled down to just a camera with a tape in it. But most of the machines actually we looked at earlier, the modular ones, will do dumb captures where they will do a raw recording of a transport stream or an MPEG-4 without any kind of intelligence attached to it. Maybe there's an XML file, but that XML file won't necessarily include any information on chapters or cue points. There won't be any transcription of what was said, but you do get a nice high-resolution raw file that can be uploaded quickly, fast turnaround. Within, say, 30 minutes of the lecture having been made, that video is ready to be played back by a student. Or if you want to edit that video, you can record it to a thumb drive, you can take it back to your desk, and you could edit it yourself however you choose. So a 60-minute recording can be chunked up into 4 15-minute segments for a flipped classroom. And we have some instructors who very much prefer to edit and manage their own videos themselves in that way. Smart captures will do text scraping. We'll read the slide either by reading the language of, say, a Word document or a PowerPoint slide, or do OCR on a graphic and read all the words that are there and give you a transcription of that. It makes it very useful for searching that content afterwards. It'll set up chapters or cue points for a video, so every time you change a slide, there's a new chapter. Or it'll give you multiple sources. You can flip between a camera and the computer content, or two cameras and computer content, or a document camera and computer content. So smart captures will do that. The question then becomes delivery. In a holistic system like Panopto, delivery is done within the Panopto system. What we're seeing now is a new open capture standard that's being championed by let's see if I can get that organization's name. The Open Capture Standard is being championed by IMS Global. And IMS Global is a company that also supports the LTI standard, which allows for plugins in learning management systems. So if you've got Canvas or you've got Moodle and you've added a plugin into that learning management system, it's done through LTI. And LMS Global is basically a consortium that supports that standard. And now there's an open capture standard which says if you want to be able to record your video in a smart fashion with chapters and still frames and transcriptions and upload it into any cloud-based platform, you would have to abide by these protocols, and that will produce a video that is not dumb, where it's just you start at 00 and move to 60 minutes, and you probably haven't really learned much from that one, but in fact you have chapters and you can search and you can jump to certain points in the video and you can toggle between camera and content and document camera. So we're hoping to see a lot more adoption of the open capture standard. We're hearing a lot from vendors that like Crestron and Extron and Winov and Kaltura that they're going to be supporting this standard going forward. So using a standalone box, you can record there and upload into whatever cloud-based solution you might have, like Ensemble, for instance, and that video will play back with all the intelligence you've attached to that recording. And then we have a desktop, basically holy grail solution. This will record a desktop software solution without any hardware. It'll record from your computer with as many as 3 separate cameras. So you can imagine a computer with 3 USB cameras attached to it. It can record your screen, or it can record your presentation, and as well, of course, your audio, and create a recording that carries all that intelligence with it without having to do any without involving any additional hardware. You don't have to buy that external box from any vendor. And there's a company out there called Collage that makes this product right now. What's most exciting about this Collage product is that they're not marketing it themselves. What they do is they license it to other vendors, and one of the vendors they've licensed it to is Kaltura. So if anybody's experimented with Kaltura's Capture Space, it's actually the Collage product. And I have, and I can demo now Capture Space. Let's see if we can get that to load up over here on this computer. And actually, that's right. Oh, there we go. I don't think we want to see CeeLo.
Maybe some of us do.
We'll have to talk to someone about who left that video there. So this is Oregon State University's Kaltura instance through MediaSpace. This is our front-end portal. And if we log in, I'm going to show you how easy it is to use Capture Space by doing a quick recording.
So is that an add-on product thing?
Yeah, it's a modular. There's a lot of functionality that Kaltura will provide to you for free. They've added a whole lot of new functionality just over the last 6 months or so that carries no cost at all. But then they have additional modular products that they license, and it's licensed at an FTE level. Basically, as many number of students you have, they charge you for that.
Now you're hosting these videos on site.
No, we're hosting them in Kaltura's cloud. Yeah. So first thing you need to know about Capture Space is that it is a software that you need to download and install. The charm of it is that you don't need to be an administrator to do it, unless you're on a Mac. On a Windows machine, it'll actually install to your basic C:\users directory. So it is possible that as many people use that computer, there will be that many instances of Capture Space installed. If you have 6 people using that computer, you'll have it installed 6 times. But the download itself is tiny. It's only about 7 megs. The install goes really quick. We had a previous Java-based capture tool that took longer to operate and wasn't nearly as smooth. We eventually had been reduced to telling people to run it on Firefox. Firefox is pretty much the only product out there that still really supports Java in any kind of functional way. Chrome and IE both have their own kind of proprietary solution now for Java, which basically means don't use Java. So now, in fact, that was it. I just installed Capture Space. So if I want to run it now, click over here and record a presentation. And it'll launch the application. From here on in, every time I do record a presentation, it'll execute Capture Space. We'll give it a second to load up. And this is the Capture Space widget. And it's basically a kitchen sink of recordings where you can record just your voice, or your voice in a webcam, your voice, a webcam in a screen, your voice on the screen. And here's the page we saw earlier, but skinned for Kaltura's purposes, where you can record the webcam, as many webcams as you have, capture the screen, or capture the presentation. And capturing the presentation in this sense means you actually load up a PowerPoint. Let's find my PowerPoint. And it'll emulate PowerPoint functionality. So again, if I hit record, it'll do my little countdown. And as I go through my presentation, it's recording my voice so long as the microphone on the computer is on, or I have this Logitech Boom microphone, which I love. It cost me maybe $20, but it has great gain. It picks up everything. I prefer not to use the camera. It's not particularly relevant to most academic content, but you can have it. And it's reading my slides, because it's the slides in a PowerPoint presentation are metadata. It's not even doing OCR. It's just reading that text. And as I go through it, and I talk, every time I change a slide, it's going to create a new cue point or a new chapter. And it'll read all this text. We'll say we're done. we have, this is where it starts recognizing the chapters. We have trimming and chopping functionality. Trimming means cutting off the fronts and ends of the video. Chopping means you cut off parts of the middle of the video. So if you've started your recording before you're ready, you can cut that up before you ever have to upload your video. If you're satisfied with your video, go ahead and click Done. And it'll upload. I won't go through the upload, but and really it's just all it's doing is FTPing it. But I will demonstrate another video I recorded in a similar fashion previously.
So do you upload it to media space?
It'll upload it to media space, but it also records the file, the MPEG-4, locally. So if you wanted to use that MP4 in a different purpose, you can. So,
If you have more than one camera operating, does it like auto choose, or are you able to pick?
it's actually, I just did a little experiment for that recently, and I can demonstrate what that looks like. Oops. Let's get, yeah, let's see that first. So we get to see my face over and over again. It'll play one camera, big fat belly, and over here you can select the second camera.
So you manually select it yourself.
Yes.
When you're watching it.
Yes.
Not when you're.
And so you see in this
recording.
case, there's a second camera from the side.
Okay.
And really, it's empowering the user to decide what kind of content he wants.
Right.
But empowering the user, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this product. It does a lot more. So this one, it's where I went through a previous presentation. In this case, I pointed the camera at the ceiling because I've seen enough of my face for a while. And so you're seeing the PowerPoints in the main window. You're seeing the camera in the little window. And the cameras are movable and resizable. So let's see if I can grab that handle. Because it's capture space, you get these additional menu functions where you can say, I want to see it side by side, or back to pip, or just to one, or go back to both. You can alternate between the two. What's more relevant, the camera or the presentation? In some cases, someone's doing a demonstration. You want to see that. Toggle between the two. And then the second menu is your chapters. So let's see. Sorry, I'm used to scrolling on a Mac. There we go. So if I want to jump to, say, this chapter here, it jumped right to it because this was a new slide in my PowerPoint, and it recognized that. But beyond that, you can search for words, and it does the autocomplete. And you want this one there, that word appeared in this slide, and so and it will take me to that slide. So it doesn't do full transcription of somebody's audio, but it'll transcribe all the text in the slide, and instructors love. You can add captions to a video as well. And to see what this looks like on the back end, because all this can be done manually. Kaltura gives you all this functionality on the back end on your own. So through a timeline now, Kaltura has included a new timeline feature, and this one's actually one of the free features they've added recently. You can add your own slides to a video. You can set your own cue points, and if you check one of these slides, in fact, this is basically it's a PNG file that matches the slide I had in PowerPoint, and it includes the text from the slide itself, and you can replace the slide. And so if you had a presentation where at one point all you had was a recording of some guy with the presentation over his shoulder and it doesn't look very elegant, you can recover his PowerPoint file from him after the fact and use this to add the slides throughout his presentation. And so it would look better. But I don't encourage anyone to do that. It can be laborious. Capture Space does all this automatically, and not just to be an advocate for Capture Space. The fact is, this is all done through the Open Capture standard, and so any product that supports Open Capture should be able to generate XML files that would do exactly this: generate PNG files for each slide, an XML file that contains timestamps for each of those PNG files, and a transcription of the language of every slide. So that's why we are big advocates for the Open Capture standard, and we keep pushing companies like Extron and Crestron to move their butts and start supporting it so that we can start seeing the more affordable boxes out there start doing something like this, so that even if you're not using Kaltura, you can use a product that supports a standard that would be compatible with pretty much any cloud-based delivery platform. So,
Do you see any time where you'll be able to download transcriptions fully?
the owner of the content right now can download his own transcriptions. The owner of the content can also determine whether a user can download the video of that. And adding a checkbox to download the transcriptions after the fact is simply a feature that has not arrived yet, but I don't see it being too far off. They just haven't programmed it yet. I don't see I don't see any hurdles to that.
Yeah, it's one thing we're struggling with. It's just the accessibility and,
Yeah.
and finding ways to do that. So.
In terms of accessibility, what we're seeing a lot of now is descriptive video. We're seeing a push for descriptive video, where in the past it was always captions for the visually impaired. Is that right? Now we want to add descriptive video for the visually impaired as well, or
Hearing.
oh yeah, captions for the for the hearing impaired, and now descriptive video for the visually impaired, where it would say, "Man walks across room to open door." We're seeing a push for that. What we're not seeing is support for that from vendors yet. But we're understanding that there's going to be some legislation coming down the chain, probably from the federal government through the ADA, that's going to say that we're going to need this sooner rather than later. So we know that any vendor that wants to sell their product to the educational market is going to have to support descriptive video sooner rather than later. Let's see.
With the Kaltura, you guys are able to connect it up to either Canvas or just able for anyone to see it on the web?
Yeah, it's an either or both. Kaltura supports LTI, the Learning Management Integration Protocol, so that it's universal. And what we've seen is once we integrated with Canvas and we just switched from Blackboard to Canvas over fall term, the integration is so seamless that we've noticed an incredible hockey stick increase in usage of video, because we know that there's demand out there from instructors for using video in their academic materials. And we also know that if we don't provide them with the tools to do it, they're going to find their own thing. So rather than chasing after the horse after it's out of the barn, we've provided these tools ahead of time. We also understand that making it as easy as we've done it means a huge increase in our bandwidth and storage costs. But again, it's simply we're paying for it now because we don't want to have to pay for it afterwards, where everybody's using different things, some things that are not necessarily FERPA or HIPAA compliant. We know that, say, delivering content through Kaltura, through Canvas, guarantees security, abides by numerous copyright restrictions that vendors might put on us. So we are very comfortable having made this integration available for everyone and let them have at it.
So the integration for Kaltura inside of Canvas was much more user-friendly,
yes,
than previously available?
It's basically transparent. If you weren't aware of the fact that it's Kaltura, all you'd know is that here's a button that says upload video. And they say, great, I'm going to upload some video. And then for them to realize that, hey, it's uploading in exactly the same place that all my other videos are, and when I click this button here, I see all my old videos that I had before. That just makes them all the happier. It's having one cloud rather than 6 different clouds is just really a blessing. So, how far did I get here? So let's see. I had at the end, or we can do Q&A, but I had at the end a couple of interesting videos that I'd gotten off YouTube. I've got them local to my computer, but one of them talks about how video is going to change how everything works, and the other one says about how that's just baloney. Oh no, do we not have anything other than Windows Media Player? VLC, yes.
Recently, YouTube invited me to California for a conference with a bunch of
This is CGP Grey, who does some great videos on YouTube. It's like every time a new video from CGP Grey comes out, I just geek out on it. Here we go. We'll start from here.
This is how schools have pretty much always looked. The guy in the front who knows all the things and students who don't, so the guy tells them. But a teacher explains things at the right pace for maybe one student who, during the lesson, everyone else is either bored because they've already understood the material or lost because they're missing information already have. But at the end of the lesson, regardless of student understanding, the curriculum marches relentlessly on. And whether the teacher uses a blackboard, whiteboard, or smartboard, and whether the students use tablets, paper, or tablets again, this system isn't really any different. It's just technology doing the same thing in a shinier way.
I think the message about how the way a teacher teaches is perfect for basically one student in the class, and some students are going to think it's too slow, and others are going to think it's too fast. Really is an important message, and you're seeing a lot of videos on YouTube and their education channel, where kids are actively going out there, seeking out this content and learning on their own. This whole self-learning thing is new, and it's coming up through the middle schools right now and through high school. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with it, but I think that a lot of the academics and administrators in higher ed are not seeing it yet, and they don't realize what's happening. And it's like, students want to learn, and they're going to learn regardless of the hurdles you might put in their way. And YouTube has simply made it easier by putting all this content out there where you watch a video, and if you don't understand it, you get to watch it again, and you get to watch it again until you do understand it. And that's really the concept of the flipped classroom again, these little 4 or 5 minute videos. Where CGP Grey goes with this is that one day there's going to be a mechanism out there that's going to let a student create his own curriculum and then teach himself, and then at the end he just gets his diploma. And that's maybe a little too pie in the sky, because a much more realistic view is this one here from Veritasium, which actually he directly refutes a few of the things that CGP Grey says. What he's talking about, of course, is like the disruptive technologies out there. We're at the CCUMC conference, was it last year? The message was all about the disruption and disruptive technologies in education. And the truth is that there's been disruptive technologies in education like forever. In fact, education is in constant flux all the time. So it's hard to call it disruption when it's happening all the time. And there's new technologies coming around all the time, and academics basically just adapt to it. It's not we're not going to fire all our instructors tomorrow because now we're teaching through video. And later on in the video, let's see if I can find the right cue point on it, but I love it. Where he says, the purpose of a teacher is not to tell you things, it's to guide you through things.
YouTube is increasing every day. So why do we need teachers? Well, if you think that the fundamental job of a teacher is to transmit information from their head to their students, then you're right. They are obsolete. I mean, you probably imagine a classroom where this teacher is spewing out facts at a pace which is appropriate for one student, too fast for and too slow for the rest. Luckily, the fundamental role of a teacher is not to deliver information. It is to guide the social process of learning.
So there, in fact, he uses CGP Grey's own slides against him. Mind you, these guys they're friends, so it's not like they're all hostile to each other. So the fact that we're putting these videos on the web and we're facilitating the upload of these videos through the lecture capture systems, and we're making it easier for instructors to be able to record themselves at their desk, doesn't mean that anytime soon we're going to put these teachers out of work. These teachers are not putting themselves out of work. It's simply a means of making it easier for a student to ingest that content at a speed that is more comfortable to them. I know people who have been very frustrated in school because they felt it was all too simple for them. But where schools really suffer are where people feel that the content is just too hard for them, and if only we could repeat that, maybe they'd be able to catch it and understand it the second or third time around. And these videos are making it easier for that. So that's where really the flipped classrooms, the little 4 or 5 minute videos, are benefiting us. And that's where these lecture capture systems, particularly the ones on the desktop, not the hardware-based ones, which are somewhat costly, but the desktop solutions is really what's going to help our academics get through to our students and help us with that wave of students that are coming through middle school and high school now and are basically teaching themselves. We have to get ahead of that wave before they get to the universities, and suddenly we're putting them in these big 200, 300 person classrooms, and they're baffled because this is not how they're used to teaching. So a lecture capture system is going to really help us get ahead of that curve. And now I'll take any questions. Yes. Oh, no. Oh, and we've got a catch box if anybody has a question.
So you're hosting on Kaltura's cloud,
Yes.
and but your URL was media.oregonstate.edu.
Yep.
And so
We've
what?
proxied to it, and we've set up a secure certificate so that it's HTTPS secure.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Down. Yeah, so one of the things that just as I was taking my notes, capture space,
Yes.
Kaltura product,
Kaltura licensed from Collage. Yes.
Collage, okay. So that is the preferred OSU product to work within the Kaltura space?
It is one of the tools we provide to anyone who wants to be able to record their desktop. I had one instructor this very spring term who wanted to be able to record his Excel formulas in a lab as he was demonstrating them. And one technologist he was speaking to convinced him to buy the Camtasia product. And then all the questions started coming up as to, like, what do I do with my recording afterwards? And you get these flash videos, and they're not particularly transportable. And I said, well, hold on a second. Let me come and show you something. And I showed him Capture Space. And the week after he started his lab, he had installed Capture Space in another classroom for a different lecture. And this morning I heard he's actually just installed it for a third different class. Frankly, the money he spent on Camtasia was wasted. It just didn't suit him. We're trying to avoid people having to buy that in the first place. And we do have a few instances of Adobe Presenter and Camtasia around campus. And by eliminating the need to purchase those softwares, we're at the same time justifying the cost of having licensed capture space.
Yeah, I want to throw an idea out there and want your input, and then if anyone else has any comments, add it. So my university, we are Echo 360 school. The last few years we have seen, because of we are bill back, we have to charge for lecture capture. That's very unpopular. We don't charge for water, we don't charge for air, but we charge for lecture capture. And given that we're looking at hardware products, like this one that's doing a wonderful job recording us right now, and a few other different products out there, I'm of the opinion now with lecture capture that maybe you don't make that grand investment into one platform like MediaSite, like Echo 360, like Panopto, and you diversify and you say, okay, I'm gonna play trifecta here. I'm gonna put a little bit of money on everything and see which one provides me with the best. What's your thoughts on that?
My concern with that would be the fragmented delivery solutions. I've for a long time have advocated for giving your students one delivery platform for your videos. The concern, and what I've seen at other institutions, is a student might be taking a class in a biology building this morning and a liberal arts building this afternoon. And so to watch a recording that may have been done in that building this morning, he has to go to one different site. And to watch a recording from that liberal arts building in the afternoon, he has to go to a second different site. And those videos might be playing back with entirely different players. One might be a HTML5 video player, and the other one might be a Flash player. So his video this morning works. His video this afternoon doesn't work. And now he has to communicate this to a help desk and say, my video is not playing. Which video is not playing? What do you have installed? What don't you have installed? What browser are you using? What version of Flash do you have? And so the central universal repository is really my bread and butter. It's what I advocate for, and it's not just economical, because it is, but it's also beneficial to the students. I don't want to throw any hurdles in their way.
Yeah, we use Kaltura as well for the same reasons. You know, you have one delivery platform. That's what we're trying to push for, and we haven't done much with lecture capture because of like what you talked about, the fragmented.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's got a different idea of how they want it to work, or they want it to work this way. But this has been helpful to see that this is an add-on option that we can explore.
And well, what we're seeing is with the central delivery platform on the back end, in this case Kaltura, but for others it could be something like Ensemble or even stuff like Uyala. You can capture with anything. And you can capture with Capture Space, but you can also capture with these studio solutions that we looked at, and that would probably give you a recording on a deck that you then need to digitize in some way, but that's certainly feasible. You can record with any kind of camcorder. So long as you ingest all those videos into that one cloud solution, it doesn't matter what you capture. And if the hardware you're using to do those captures supports the Open Capture standard, that gives you then that intelligent recording with the chapters, with the transcriptions, and with the multiple cameras. So again, it's like, we don't want to advocate for just this one piece of hardware. Any hardware will do so long as it supports Open Capture.
So were you said your usage had done the hockey stick.
Yep.
Did the bandwidth and storage costs also follow that hockey stick up?
It did, and it did, and honestly, it's the increase in usage that's convinced our administrators that this is something really that needs to be funded centrally. Because what's been happening previously is that we were funding it through our own department, and as Doug would attest, is like if you put the big $ hurdle in front of a product, no one's going to use it, and they're going to go out and they're going to find their own solutions. And unfortunately, that solution generally is YouTube, and there are problems with YouTube. YouTube is a great platform, but when it comes to, say, FERPA, it becomes a mess. So we were funding it right out of our department's budget and not charging anyone for it. And it was becoming a little bit of a drain, so we did make the case for central funding. What we've discovered is that we pay Kaltura for basically a combined bandwidth and disk usage bit bucket. What we've discovered is that it's not disk usage that's killing us. Most of our videos are not getting played. If you look at our analytics, about 20% of our videos get played, and the other 80% just sit there. It's that 20% that is killing us in terms of bandwidth. Because these 1-hour lectures that are not getting cut up, a student will sit there and watch the whole thing, and if it's from a large lecture hall, now you've got 300 students watching a 1-hour lecture. That's 300 hours of bandwidth.
Yeah.
So it's the bandwidth that's killing us. It's not the disk usage.
So in doing that, you talk about FERPA and the privacy issues that come with lecture capture. Does the school have a policy that teachers have to put up a slide saying, hey, this is being recorded?
We do not record the students.
Okay.
For our hardware-based lecture capture systems, in that case, we use the Crestron Capture HD in most cases. We do not attach a camera to it, so we only record the content on the screen or the document camera. And unless someone's putting their face on the document camera, we're not seeing their face. We do not have microphones in the room. We just have the instructor's lab, and so we hear the instructor. It is a very rare case where a student will come close enough that we can actually hear that student's voice from the instructor's lab. And so in those cases, in those scenarios, FERPA is not an issue. Where we are in a scenario where we are recording students, If it's not a public performance, and so it is a specific class, we then hand out releases that everyone needs to sign. We need that physical release from each and every one of them. And if they do not sign it, then we need to be able to accommodate them. The operator, and that in those cases it would be generally a camera operator, the operator needs to be aware of where that student's sitting, because you cannot tell the student to go sit in the corner.
Not legally anyways.
No. And so the operator must accommodate that and find a way to work around that student, or we simply will not record the students.
What about the recording of events? Because we have some situations where it's a class, but yet it's an event.
There's some gray area there.
Q&A always build into the end of the hour
Yep.
event.
There's some gray area there, but our current policy, I believe, is somewhere leaning towards the public performance, don't need a release area.
And that brings up another, the management end of having one place to go to find those videos if there was an issue.
Yeah.
Having that in Kaltura to go, hey, I can go get that and pull it down if I needed to.
Yep.
Instead of, it's on somebody's YouTube channel
Where was it
somewhere.
uploaded? Who uploaded it? And how can I find it? So, and of course, these desktop capture solutions are more in tune with recording at your desk or at your home, although they can also operate in the classroom. As I mentioned, that one instructor in his labs and in his classes is running capture space. But again, it's only recording from his computer, and in those cases, if the computer has a webcam, it's facing him, it's not facing the students. So the students would not be captured. It is definitely a concern. We want to accommodate our FERPA obligations. So again, we're not advocating for any one hardware solution. We are, most of you know, we're using the Crestron captures on our campus. They're absurdly affordable. We're putting them in pretty much every new build that we have. Let's see, I think I have a photograph. This. This is what basically our build rack looks like. The second component down is the Crestron capture device. And we can build this whole thing for about $20,000. And most of that probably goes to like the DMPS, the media switcher. The capture itself is really not a factor in terms of cost, which is why they're showing up in so many of our classrooms. We do have a number of new buildings in our campus, and all of those buildings, all the classrooms in those buildings have the Crestron capture in it. Any class that gets a hardware refresh, we put a Crestron capture in it, but they are not smart recordings. They basically give us a dumb video file that, and so if it's a 1 hour or an hour and a half lecture, it's an hour and a half video that a student needs to sit through. So we are pushing hard for Crestron to start adopting the open capture standards so that when it records a PowerPoint, it'll do that slide chaptering and allow us to record those videos. I've got some instructors, in fact, that stop the recording in the middle and then start it again to just chunk up their videos a little bit, and that accommodates the students a little bit. Any other questions? I'll be around all week. I've got some cards up here if anybody needs my contact information. So thank you all for coming out.